Okay, let's unpack this. You've shared a stack of fascinating material, drawing heavily from Hyperefficient by Matthew Storoni.
That's right. It's really rich stuff.
And our mission in this deep dive, really, is to cut through the noise, to extract the most valuable insights on working smarter, not just harder.
By understanding and, crucially, working with our brain's natural rhythms. And the world's rhythms, too.
Which feels especially relevant now, doesn't it, with all the unique challenges of, well, the digital age?
It absolutely does. We're going to dive into some big ideas, things like the brain's different gears.
Okay.
It had these fundamental natural rhythms that govern us, what really fuels motivation, and, how to actually navigate this sheer fire hose of information hitting us every day.
Right. It's about using the science to be genuinely more effective, not just busier.
Exactly. Less busy work, more effective work.
So where do we even start with something as big as optimizing our brains for work? Maybe. But maybe looking at how our whole relationship with work and even time itself has changed.
That feels like the right place to begin. The foundation. Think way back, before railroads. Remember sun time?
Oh, yeah. Where every town just set its clocks by the sun.
Can you imagine the chaos from our perspective today?
Right. Like, wasn't it something like 56 different time standards just in the U.S.? The New York Times apparently lamented it back in 1883.
Exactly. That tells you something significant. As human movement, driven by this new tech, the railroads got faster than nature's pace.
Yeah.
Well, local sun time just became impractical.
So standardization was needed.
Standard time, yeah. Born out of sheer necessity. It was a really powerful early example of technology bending our experience of time and space to fit its needs.
And that bending didn't stop with trains, did it? It fundamentally reshaped the workplace.
Oh, definitely. We moved from those physical assembly lines of the Industrial Revolution
To the modern office. And surprisingly, by the 1970s, it was white-collar clerical workers who were found to be the most dissatisfied group.
Which seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? Until you look closer.
How so?
Well, a 1972 report actually compared office work, things like computer key punch operations, typing pools directly to automobile assembly lines.
Wow. So that mechanical, repetitive nature of the factory floor, it was basically imported into the mental space of the office.
Pretty much. Yeah. And the core problem becomes clear then.
This assembly line configuration, but for knowledge work.
Right. And it inherently emphasizes quantity over quality. You're just pushing units of information through a mental process, like widgets.
And what does that do to us mentally?
Well, it flattens your natural mental fluctuations. You might avoid the lowest dips in productivity, sure.
But you also kill the peaks.
Exactly. You eliminate the natural highs. There's just no room left for that flash of brilliance, that sudden insight, or any really out-of-the-box thinking.
For too long, in that sort of industrial hangover, it was just about how much the mind processed, not how well it did it.
A mind was just treated like a cog in a machine.
Which clashes completely with what the sources suggest are our most fundamental natural patterns. Things like power laws.
Yes, power laws.
This idea of a mathematical relationship where you have intense bursts of work followed by lighter work and rest. And it's everywhere.
It really is pervasive once you start looking for it. You see it in physics. Think Sir Roger Penrose's ideas about recurring universes following cycles.
Okay.
You see it in nature, like the Juanzi people, whose timekeeping is so deeply tied to predictable seasonal rhythms. And even in us, modern urban adults.
Yeah.
Studies show we take short physical activity breaks frequently, but long breaks much less often. That pattern fits a power law distribution.
So it's not just some abstract math thing. It's woven into our environment and how we behave. Even famous historical figures seem to follow this.
Think about people like Darwin or Freud or Einstein. They were processing letters or problems like items on a conveyor belt.
Right.
Their letter writing patterns, for instance, they show these rhythmic bursts of replies, often short intervals between them, but only occasionally long ones. Their creative work, their intellectual work. It had these power law undertones.
That raises the central question then, doesn't it? If these power laws are so innate, if they seem to choreograph how we explore, work, rest, could the secret to working better with our brains be to actually align with them?
Instead of forcing ourselves into that steady, unnatural assembly line pace.
Yeah.
That's exactly the hypothesis the sources dig into. Instead of fighting this natural rhythm, maybe we need to embrace the bursty, intense periods.
Followed by the necessary lighter periods and rest.
Precisely.
And this ties into understanding our brain's own internal mechanics, this idea of a gear system.
Right. The sources talk about the blue dot network in the brain.
The locus coeruleus.
Yeah, sometimes called the blue spot. It fires these, well, bullets of norepinephrine.
And these bullets actually changed the brain's configuration and pace.
Fundamentally, think of it like shifting gears in a car. These norepinephrine bursts alter the brain's state, how fast it processes information, where its attention goes. It literally reconfigures the network.
Which brings us to this metaphorical gear system for mental work. 3 main gears, that right?
That's the model presented, yes.
Yeah.
First, you have gear 1, slow.
The resting state.
Right, like sitting by a warm fire. It's for daydreaming, recharging, that kind of detached attention where you're receptive to subconscious ideas. This is often where those unexpected aha moments pop up.
Okay, gear 1, then.
Then gear 2, medium. This is really the workhorse gear for most knowledge work.
This is where the focus happens.
Exactly. It's where you have that magic power, as the source puts it, of focused attention. Optimal for concentration, learning, problem solving, critical thinking, and that kind of focused creativity.
And even within gear 2, there are nuances, right? Different speeds.
Precisely. There's like a low energy gear 2 for more wandering associative thinking, then a core gear 2 for real laser focus, and a high energy gear 2 when you need fluid reasoning for complex, maybe unfamiliar tasks.
So gear 2 is pretty versatile.
Very. Covering a whole range of focus states.
And gear 3.
Gear 3, fast. This is sprint mode, responding quickly in critical moments.
Like emergency responders.
Athletes. Exactly. Your crude abilities, maybe even typing speed, might get enhanced. But your refined abilities, nuanced analysis, careful decision-making, those are often compromised.
Why?
Because parts of the prefrontal cortex, your main thinking area, are partly offline in Gear 3. It's great for automatic tasks, crisis response, maybe even quick interactions with AI, but not for deep, thoughtful work.
And the implications of spending too much time in these gears? It sounds like prolonged gear 3 is particularly taxing.
It absolutely is. The brain isn't designed for sustained Gear 3 sprints. And interestingly, the sources suggest research indicates that spending adequate time in Gear 2 might actually help offset some of the strain or even damage caused by too much Gear 3.
Okay, so that power law pattern we talked about makes even more sense now.
Short bursts in Gear 3, balanced by longer periods in Gears 1 and 2. It seems the most logical and maybe the most sustainable approach for mental work.
And it seems like the brain wants to do this.
What's fascinating is that the blue dot network itself, even in newborn rats, appears to naturally favor this kind of bursty power law pattern, it seems. Well, hardwired.
An innate tendency. But we're not all the same when it comes to shifting between them, are we? Is that where this idea of a gear personality comes in?
Exactly. How easily you shift gears. Whether your system feels springy, changing states rapidly, or more stiff, needing more effort to get into or stay in Gear 2. That's part of your unique psychological makeup.
And it affects things like tolerance for uncertainty, how easily you get in the zone.
Absolutely. And it seems to be a mix of nature and nurture.
So a stiff gear personality, what does that actually look or feel like?
Someone with a stiffer system might need more external push.
Yeah.
Things like deadlines, pressure, intense challenges. They need that to really engage Gear 2 focus.
Like the Wall Street trader example. PNC.
Yeah, he's a great example. Makes these incredibly high-stakes decisions, but can apparently nap at work because ordinary levels of uncertainty just don't stimulate him enough.
He needed more.
He needed high uncertainty, like skiing Mount Fuji under potentially dangerous conditions. That was the level of challenge that engaged him fully. His threshold for thriving was just very high.
So understanding if your own system is more springy or stiff could really help you find or maybe create work environments where you're most effective.
Absolutely. Or you learn strategies to manage your state, like BK, the manager mentioned in the sources.
What did he do?
He found that simple, organizing tasks, tidying, ordering things, helped him manage the anxiety he felt around deadlines early in his career.
So the small controllable tasks gave him a sense of agency.
Exactly, which acted as an antidote to the uncertainty and helped him manage his gear shifts better. Knowing your tendency allows you to compensate or play to your strengths.
Is there any simple way, maybe not a proper scientific test, but something listeners could try just to get a rough idea of their own gear personality?
The sources suggest a sort of approximate guesstimate. Find a quiet, dark room, lie down, close your eyes for about 20 minutes. Ideally, late morning or afternoon, avoiding caffeine or being sleep deprived. The idea is just to pay attention. How does your mind settle? Or does it start racing with thoughts quickly and intensely?
And doing that a few times might give you a sense of your baseline.
Yeah, a sense of your default state when you're not actively engaged. It's just a rough guide, of course.
This all points back to that bigger picture, doesn't it? Aligning ourselves with natural rhythms, not just our internal gear system, but the rhythms of nature and our body, too.
That pyramid model mentioned in the sources, rhythms of nature, body, and mind.
Right.
In pre-industrial life, like those Sulu goat herds described, these rhythms are just naturally aligned. Nature sets the pace sun up, sun down, the body follows, the mind adapts. Their gears seem to shift pretty fluidly.
But for us, urban knowledge workers, we're often swimming against that tide.
Totally. Trying to maintain a constant mental sprint, which makes it really hard to wind down properly or find that natural flow. Our gears get stuck.
Okay, let's break down those layers of the pyramid, starting with the rhythms of the world. The sun's path seems absolutely fundamental.
Oh, it hugely influences your gears. Your mental gears tend to follow the arc of the sun through the day.
So waking up in gear 1?
Yeah, then climbing into gear 2, focus as the sun rises. Maybe a bit of a dip midday.
A post-lunch slump?
Could be. Then maybe climbing back into gear 2 in the afternoon and finally winding down to gear 1 as evening approaches.
And the brain chemistry follows this.
The level of norepinephrine in the brain, that key chemical for gear shifting, it naturally follows a similar 24-hour circadian rhythm.
And there's that really fascinating real-world study that illustrates this connection perfectly, the bank loan one.
Oh yeah, the loan approval study. Incredible. They analyzed over 25,000 applications.
And
Loans were significantly more likely to be approved during the morning and late afternoon peaks in alertness and focus. Those gear 2 peaks.
because approving takes more effort than denying.
Exactly. Approving requires more detailed analysis, more mental effort, gear 2 work. Denying can be quicker, almost default.
And the financial implication was huge.
The researchers calculated that if all loan decisions were timed to hit that morning peak, the bank could potentially pull in over $500,000 extra revenue in just 1 month.
Wow, that's the power of aligning decisions with natural mental rhythms. Incredible.
It really is.
Okay, moving to the next layer. Rhythms of the body. How does our physical state impact our mental gears?
Profoundly. Simple things like sleep deprivation. We all know it's bad, but specifically, it makes it much harder for your brain to shift down to gear 1 at night.
You stay sort of wired.
Yeah, you're stuck in a higher state of alertness than you should be. And that chronic strain then messes up your ability to reach optimal gear 2 focus the next day.
And our individual chronotype being a lark or an owl, that matters too.
Absolutely. Studies have shown larks naturally perform better on tasks needing thought and precision, say 8 a.m. Owls peak much later, maybe 8:30 p.m.
And the standard 9 to 5.
It hurts both extremes, really. Often forces owls into chronic sleep debt, or makes them rely heavily on caffeine just to function during their natural low point.
Light is obviously a huge cue for our body's rhythms.
Massive. Natural light changes gradually through the day. You get those distinct red-orange hues at sunrise and sunset that our brains are attuned to.
Unlike office lights or screens.
Right. Blue-dominated LED light, often hitting us abruptly, is a very different signal. It can really disrupt those natural cues.
What about sound? How does that influence our mental state?
It does, in a couple of ways.
Right.
Partly through entrainment, where our brainwaves can actually sync up with external rhythms like sound, and partly through how we interpret it. Fast music or background noise, like a busy cafe, sometimes that can help raise your gear from gear 1 if you're feeling sluggish and need a jolt to get focused. But if you're already in deep gear 2, needing intense concentration, that same noise will actively pull you out of it. It becomes a distraction.
And body temperature. Can small shifts help us shift gears?
Gentle changes, yeah, like short hot or cold showers. They can trigger a mild sympathetic nervous system response, a little jolt of norepinephrine, essentially nudging your gear up from a sluggish gear 1 towards gear 2.
Okay. And breathing. We hear a lot about breathing exercises for stress. Do they affect gears?
Definitely. Slowing your breathing down, especially focusing on longer exhalations, aiming for maybe 5 or 6 breaths per minute, that can actively help lower your gear.
How?
There's a direct neural link between that blue dot network and the part of the brain controlling breathing pace. And stimulating the vagus nerve through slow, deep breathing might shift the blue dot network into a pattern supporting what the sources call calm alertness.
Calm alertness. That sounds paradoxical, but desirable. Intensely alert, but also deeply relaxed.
It does seem paradoxical, doesn't it? But it's potentially a state where your brain is highly responsive and focused, gear 2. Yet your body isn't flooded with stress hormones. You're not anxious.
Are there activities that induce this?
Some activities might. Maybe something like hot yoga, You have elements that raise your gear, like the heat, but also elements that lower it, like controlled breathing and relaxation. It's an interesting balance.
And how we use our eyes, our gaze, can influence things too.
Yes. When you're concentrating intensely, your visual attention naturally narrows.
Tunnel vision.
Right. But consciously widening your gaze, paying attention to your peripheral vision, can actually help nudge you towards a more creative state. It makes your brain more receptive to connecting disparate bits of information.
Like that World War II plane example.
Exactly. They studied the planes that came back to see where the bullet holes were, planning to reinforce those areas. But the real insight came from widening the perspective, realizing they needed to reinforce the areas where the returning planes didn't have holes, because those were the hits that brought planes down. A shift in attention.
What about the opposite, detaching your gaze? Closing your eyes.
That's really useful for turning inward. It helps disengage from external stuff, lets you shift attention smoothly. Like putting a manual car into neutral before changing gears.
Good for
Introspection, retrieving memories, getting perspective if you're stuck on a problem, or just resting your focused attention for a moment.
Okay. And the classic work fuel, caffeine. How does it fit with gears?
Caffeine definitely has its place. It's good at lifting you from a low gear 1 state into focused attention. That's its main trick.
But there's a catch.
A big one. The sources really highlight this. If you're already in gear 2 or pushing towards gear 3, caffeine can actually be detrimental.
How so?
It can hinder concentration, mess with your ability to filter out distractions, and lead to more mistakes in careful, precise work. It helps with convergent problem solving, finding one answer, but not divergent creative thinking.
And it makes it harder to wind down later.
Yes, that upward push makes it harder to downshift when you need to rest or shift focus.
Okay, let's move to the rhythms of the mind itself. Specifically, the basic rest activity cycle, or BRAC.
Right. This is that roughly 90-minute cycle where our brains naturally fluctuate in alertness and focus.
And mental fatigue isn't just feeling tired.
No, it's more like a signal. Your brain is actively wanting to shift towards a lower gear. Maybe, as one theory suggests, because metabolic toxic waste is building up from the effort.
Or the pathways are getting inefficient.
Exactly. Or, as a Singapore study suggested, the neural routes for the task are becoming less efficient. And trying to override this natural dip, just pushing through,
Bad idea.
can be really counterproductive. It can force you into gear 3 just to keep going, leading to a kind of cumulative fatigue. The study on students recovering from exam strain showed it could take weeks to fully recover mentally.
So working intensely for much longer than 90 minutes without a real break is basically fighting our biology.
Pretty much. The sources strongly suggest that for intense cognitive work, 90 minutes should really be the maximum duration between significant breaks.
And we can structure work sessions and breaks around this rhythm?
Absolutely. A key recommendation is to front-load your most complex work within a session.
Get the hard stuff done first.
Yeah, aim to do maybe 80% of the really demanding cognitive lifting in the first 20 minutes or so of a 60 to 90-minute session when your brain is freshest.
And breaks. They serve different purposes. You mentioned charging stations.
Right. These are short, frequent breaks within a session, maybe 10 minutes every 20 minutes or so for more passive work, or even just 5-second micro pauses every couple of minutes if the work is super intense.
And their goal?
To help you snap back into gear 2 if you feel your focus slipping, either getting sluggish or too wired. The activity during the break can kind of counteract your current state.
Like exercise if you're drowsy or breathing if you're anxious.
Exactly. And then you have the rest stations.
These are longer breaks at the end of a session?
Yes, typically 15-25 minutes, intended for more thorough rejuvenation before you start your next big block of work.
And what do you do in those?
Activities here should ideally help your mind fully disengage from the work. Maybe exercise, maybe play a game like Tetris that completely grabs your attention. Or you could use activities that actively lower your gear into a relaxed state breathing exercises, maybe progressive muscle relaxation.
Okay, so we've covered the landscape, the rhythms, the gears. Now, what about the core elements of knowledge work itself? Learning, creativity, problem solving. These must be the hills that require those bursts of mental power.
They absolutely are. And they primarily happen in gear 2, maybe with brief, focused dashes into gear 3 when speed is essential.
Followed by necessary descents into gear 1 for rest or maybe unstructured thought.
Exactly. And to navigate these successfully, you need 3 key things: goals, motivation, and feedback.
Goals in knowledge work. It sounds less like a straight road and more like an obstacle course.
That's a perfect way to put it. Unlike linear, repetitive tasks, knowledge work is just full of unpredictable hurdles.
So you need flexible goals.
You need clear short-term goals to navigate the immediate obstacles, but they have to be flexible enough so you can adapt when things change, all while keeping your long-term aim in sight. Gear 2 focus helps anchor you, but you have to be ready to pivot.
And motivation provides the engine power, right, to raise your gear and tackle those goals. The sources talk about intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation.
That's a crucial distinction. Intrinsic motivation comes from within. The pure joy of the process, the challenge, the learning itself, it's self-driving.
Whereas extrinsic is from the outside.
Right. Tangible rewards like pay, status, grades, or avoiding punishment. It's tied to the outcome.
In the digital age, with outcomes often being complex, sometimes unpredictable, intrinsic motivation sounds like it becomes incredibly important.
Absolutely crucial. That Johnny Wilkinson rugby example is perfect. He's in flow, loving the game.
Intrinsic.
Totally. Until the whistle blows for that crucial penalty kick, suddenly the external pressure, the extrinsic motivation of national expectation, the fear of failure, it kicks in hard.
And that shifts his state.
Completely. Introduces dread, what-if thoughts, pulls him right out of flow, and probably pushes him towards gear 3, which isn't ideal for precision kicking.
So extrinsic motivation, especially tied to uncertain outcomes or fear of loss, carries this psychological tension. It can push you unhelpfully towards gear 3.
It definitely can, but you can work with it. A key is reframing, turning a perceived threat into a challenge by focusing on what you can control.
Play to win, not play to avoid losing.
Exactly. The football penalty shootout study showed a huge difference. 62% success when players focused on avoiding loss versus 92% when focused on winning. Fear pushes you to gear 3, hindering fine motor control and focus.
Like the defending champion problem.
Right. Shifting from conquering new ground, which is intrinsically challenging, to just defending your status, which brings extrinsic pressure and fear. That can be really detrimental to performance.
Okay, but one particularly reliable way to tap into intrinsic motivation seems to be through the sensation of learning progress.
Yes. This is a really powerful built-in mechanism. The sources suggest we are fundamentally wired to continuously improve, to master the unknown.
And the feeling itself is motivating.
The feeling of making progress, acquiring knowledge, building skills, closing that gap between where you are and where you want to be, that sensation, is inherently satisfying, intrinsically motivating.
It's not just about the facts learned.
No, it's the sensation of getting better. Historian Anton Howes points to this improving mentality as a key driver behind the British Industrial Revolution's innovation surge.
And for this progress to feel motivating, you need consistent feedback, right?
Absolutely. You need to know you're moving forward, even if it's just incremental. That neural network study mentioned is interesting.
The one about optimal difficulty.
Yeah, suggesting the sweet spot for learning progress is where you're getting about 15% wrong.
Yeah.
Challenging enough to feel like you're learning, but not so hard you just get discouraged.
The connection between effort and reward seems vital here too. And the sources mention how industrialization kind of distorted that link.
Yeah, traditionally, effort often led pretty directly and immediately to a tangible reward, which felt good. Industrialization added layers, delays. It broke that connection sometimes.
But we can retrain that connection.
The research suggests yes. By rewarding effort itself consistently, you can actually make the effort feel pleasurable again. Studies show people rewarded for mental effort are more likely to choose effortful tasks later, even without a guaranteed external reward.
So the effort itself becomes the reward.
Exactly. Engaging in effortful hobbies outside work, like that trader doing extreme sports, can help build this positive association with effort.
And when intrinsic motivation is really firing on all cylinders, you can enter that peak state, flow.
A flow, where you feel almost effortless, but your performance is actually enhanced. Time seems to warp. The work is deeply engaging.
And it's efficient.
Incredibly efficient. Key brain networks like attention and reward systems synchronize. The analogy used is a juggler getting all the plates spinning perfectly in sync.
And flow isn't random, it requires specific conditions.
Yes. The sources outline 5 core conditions. A clear challenge that stretches your skills, clear goals, so you know what you're aiming for, a good skill match, challenging but not overwhelming, immediate and clear feedback on your progress, and motivation specifically, wanting to overcome the challenge for its own sake again and again.
Games like Tetris nail this, don't they?
Classic examples. They're built around these principles, which is why gamification is being tried in workplaces, trying to leverage these intrinsic motivation and flow triggers.
And having autonomy helps.
Fundamentally, having agency or autonomy in your work, control over your tasks, your pace, how you achieve goals, that strongly fosters intrinsic motivation. The pleasure comes from the sequence of actions you choose and execute, not just the final consequence.
Okay, thinking about learning specifically in the digital age, the sources mention the Teller curve, this idea that technology is progressing faster than human adaptability.
It's a really key point. Astrid Teller from Google X used that curve to illustrate it. The pace of technological progress has crossed over and is now accelerating ahead of our ability to adapt.
Meaning what we learn gets outdated faster.
Much faster. What you learn in traditional education, if shelf life is shrinking. Lifelong learning isn't just a nice-to-have anymore, it's essential. Like constantly studying for an exam where the syllabus keeps changing under your feet.
And with AI tools learning so fast, how do we need to learn skills differently?
It means getting comfortable with, well, jumping in and learning on the job, learning by doing.
Like the examples of FZ, the software engineer, and GK, the manager.
Exactly. They learned by starting with something familiar, then incrementally tackling small, unfamiliar challenges, building speed and confidence from those small wins. Being comfortable with the unknown, with not having all the answers up front, that's becoming a huge asset.
And learning information itself, that requires a specific mental state, right? Gear 2.
Primarily, yes. Focused attention in gear 2. Your brain also needs fuel for this lactate, which is produced during exercise, is actually a key fuel source for learning processes in the brain.
Exercise helps learning.
Seems so. And emotions can help information stick if they keep you in gear 2, like focused curiosity or excitement.
But not if they push you higher.
Right. If strong emotions push you into gear 3, you might get those vivid flashbulb memories like the smell of an exam hall. But they're visceral, not really conducive to thoughtful learning of complex facts or concepts.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly to the creative mind. How do our gears and attention play into that?
Creativity often involves broadening your beam of attention, letting more diverse information in. And that happens more readily in the low and high energy states of gear 2.
Low energy gear 2. Yeah.
That's the relaxed, almost daydreamy state. Good for spontaneous insights bubbling up from the subconscious, letting connections happen passively.
And high energy gear 2.
That's sharper, more energetic. Better for actively thinking outside the box, letting go of established patterns, really pushing for lateral thinking. As Martindale's work suggested, widening attention helps connect disparate ideas, key for novelty, and seems like a skill you can practice.
And play seems crucial here too.
Absolutely. Hitchcock telling unrelated stories to break creative blocks. That shows how play can reduce pressure and allow unexpected connections to surface.
Environments matter too. Bell Labs.
Yeah, a legendary hotbed of innovation, partly because its very architecture and culture fostered informal interaction, collaboration, and even playfulness between different disciplines. Serendipity by design.
So creative problem solving isn't just one thing. It's about hopping between different mental states.
It's really dynamic. You need to shift speed, shift focus, sometimes converging tightly on a solution, sometimes diverging widely to explore possibilities, moving between your inner world and the outer world.
High energy gear 2 sounds good for that flexibility.
It is. Great for flexible focus, fluid reasoning, especially when facing unfamiliar problems. But if you get stuck, maybe you need to shift to passive thinking in low energy gear 2. Take a walk, do something completely unrelated and non-obligatory, let your subconscious chew on it. Or you might use active thinking in high energy gear 2 for deliberate brainstorming. Einstein playing the piano when stuck is that classic example, using another creative activity to help trigger shifts and insights.
Okay. All of this framework, the gears, the rhythms, motivation, it really helps us understand and hopefully better navigate the unique challenges the digital age throws at us. It feels like our minds are the new assembly lines, but under totally unprecedented pressure.
That is the core challenge, isn't it? The digital age brings this heavy information load,
Yep.
a much faster perceived pace, and totally new kinds of uncertainty. Our brains are working overtime, just trying to keep up.
Let's talk about that information load first. High volume, often low quality, and just not enough focused attention to process it all.
Because digital information transfer is so cheap and easy, quantity often just swamps quality. It's incredibly hard to sift through the noise to find what's actually relevant or useful.
And often the goal seems to be just passing info along.
Yeah, just forwarding information, regardless of whether the recipient needs it or can even use it effectively.
Media richness theory comes into play here, right? Face-to-face is rich because you get immediate feedback, nonverbals.
Exactly. You can adjust on the fly.
Yeah.
Email is lean. It lacks those cues, which makes misunderstanding much easier. Like that example of PB's team getting totally confused by misinterpreted emails.
And the sheer volume contributes to decision fatigue.
Absolutely. The sources make a great point. It's often the number of decisions, not just the total time working, that wears us down.
Like the nurse study.
Right. Decision quality dropped the more calls they took, independent of how long their shift was. Each call was another set of decisions.
So strategies like reducing options, doing groundwork first, taking breaks, they're essential.
Crucial for combating that fatigue.
Then there's the feeling of too little time. Our perception of time feels constantly warped by the digital world's speed.
Instant communication creates this pervasive sense of urgency. Everything feels like it needs attention now, and that constantly nudges us toward or keeps us stuck in gear 3.
Like KR's urgent emails.
Perfect illustration. That inflation of urgency, CCing everyone hoping someone responds. It paradoxically creates delays and stress, often without clear direction. This constant state of high alert makes it incredibly difficult to shift down into gear 2 for deep focused work when you actually need it.
Then even continuous active mental work tires us out really quickly, like in just 5 minutes.
Which just underscores the need for those micro pauses, those charging stations we talked about. Even just a 5-second break can help reset your focus.
And anchoring attention on goals is key.
Yeah, that goal LS training idea, stop, relax, refocus. It's a crucial skill for maintaining attention when distractions are constant.
What about multitasking in this environment?
True multitasking, doing two things that both require focused attention at the same time, is very, very difficult for our brains. Maybe slightly easier if you can stay in high-energy gear 2, where attention is broader, but it still involves rapid taxing switching.
And it's harder to shift down than up.
Much harder. It's harder to downshift from gear 3 back to focus gear 2 than it is to get pushed up from 2 to 3. The environment pulls you up. Returning to focus takes conscious effort.
And the virtual world itself just feels inherently more mentally taxing than the physical one?
Ned Cox's theory argues exactly that. We evolved for rich, face-to-face communication. Digital communication, email, screens, even VR forces our brains to use less efficient pathways because it deviates so much from those evolved patterns.
It takes more effort.
More mental effort to fill in the missing context or adapt to unnatural sensory input. Think about reading on screens versus paper, or how VR requires your mind to actively synthesize information the physical world provides automatically. It all adds cognitive load.
Okay, finally, there's this uncertainty paradox the sources highlight. It feels like technology promises control, but somehow introduces new kinds of uncertainty instead.
It often replaces direct control with indirect influence. My old VW car breaks down, maybe I can lift the hood and see the problem, understand it.
Right.
My modern car, I can influence it with buttons, menus, but I can't really understand or control the complex software running it.
Yeah.
That lack of transparency, that lack of direct control creates uncertainty.
And tech eliminates some old uncertainties, but can amplify new, bigger ones.
Algorithmic trading is a prime example. It might reduce micro-uncertainty for an individual trader in the moment, but it can dramatically increase macro-uncertainty across the whole market because the complex interactions are opaque and unpredictable.
So how do we tame this new uncertainty?
Redundancy is key. Look at the ancient Angkor water system. It only failed when redundancy was removed. And embracing controlled failure.
Like Netflix's Chaos Monkey.
Exactly. Intentionally breaking parts of their own system to see how it responds, to build resilience. The example of BB's team forgetting how to fix their code because things always worked perfectly shows the danger of lacking that exposure. You need practice failing safely.
And our own discomfort with uncertainty. That pushes our gears up, right? Into anxiety, worry.
It does.
Yeah.
Which is why a sense of control, even if it's in a completely different domain of life, can help mitigate this. Think about organizations with high inherent uncertainty, like the military. They often rely on strict rules, order, hierarchy.
It provides a psychological antidote.
Exactly. Imposed control as an antidote to external uncertainty. And you can also train self-control, build resilience to uncertainty by incrementally exposing yourself to discomfort or fear.
Like Jeb Corliss, the base jumper, practicing with snakes.
An extreme example, sure, but it's about building comfort with controlled discomfort, which translates to managing fear in high-stakes situations.
And superstitions or rituals, they play a role too.
They seem to. Superstitions might be a way of delegating that uncontrollable load to some external force. If you're not superstitious, rituals can provide a similar psychological benefit
How?
by providing a sense of control through consistent, predictable action, especially in high-pressure moments. Rafael Nadal's elaborate pre-serve routine isn't magic. The control comes from the consistency of his actions. It helps him manage his nervous energy, maybe lower his gear just slightly, and focus before the point.
Okay, so we've really taken a deep dive here, pulling insights from the sources into how your brain works, exploring everything from those ancient rhythms of nature and body to the inner mechanics of mental gears and what really fuels our drive.
Yeah, and we've seen how the digital age throws up these new complex challenges.
But also how understanding these fundamental principles, power laws, gear shifting, harnessing motivation, navigating uncertainty, how that can help you not just survive, but actually optimize your mental efficiency.
It really is about recognizing that the old industrial age, a simple line model for the mind, is just outdated and, frankly, harmful. The goal isn't to be some rigid marching soldier pushing information units along.
Yeah.
It's about becoming more like, I don't know, a dynamic spinning dancer.
Yeah.
Moving more effortlessly through challenges by aligning with your natural rhythmic capacity for focused intensity, creative exploration, and that absolutely necessary rest.
That's a great image. Okay, here's a final provocative thought for you, for everyone listening to consider. If our innate biological tendency really leans towards these rhythmic, power law-like patterns of work and rest, and the demands of the modern digital world are constantly pushing us into a sustained, high-speed, Gear 3 state, a state our brains just weren't built for over long periods.
Yeah.
What are the ultimate long-term consequences of that mismatch?
Not just for our productivity in the moment.
Right, but for our overall well-being, our capacity for deep, reflective thinking, and maybe even our potential for truly novel creative insight down the road. Something to think about.